Well, we are here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. I'm Dom Tibbetts, joined by ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller. Matt, always a pleasure to talk to you every year. We are here talking about the Bills, of course, and I feel like it's almost a little bit of deja vu. Last year, the defensive line was a big target point. It still is with this organization, but there's also the need for a wide receiver. I named those two positions. Are those kind of the top of the list of what you think this organization needs right now to address in the draft?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, those are the two keys, right? Being able to get after the quarterback and then supporting Josh Allen. Those are the big areas. But I think you also have to always be looking for, is it the time to upgrade at corner or add to the cornerback room? Is it the time to, add another piece of the linebacker position? I think Buffalo's been really good at drafting, trading, targeting guys at free agency. So churning the back end of the roster, like I think we've seen some dynasties as of late. One in New England kind of fell apart because they didn't draft at the back end of the roster as well. So as Buffalo's on this run of dominance and being a Super Bowl contender, making sure that you have not just the superstars, but depth is super important.
Regardless of what position Matt Buffalo goes with, does it feel like right now they need to hit on an early round draft pick where maybe they just haven't had that success in recent years?
Yeah, they do. And, listen, it's hard to draft at the end of the first round. It really is. And we've seen that from a lot of teams that have been in that area. Yes, it is time to hit. And I think especially now you have a change at head coach, you're going to have some changes, structurally within the organization. It's what is Joe Brady looking for in a wide receiver? What is Josh Allen looking for in a wide receiver? Trying to innovate at that spot, I think it's huge. But yes, it's time to hit. I think in the first couple rounds, you have to be getting starters out of the first, second, and maybe even third round, despite the fact that you're drafting at the back end of each of those rounds. The pressure is on the front office to go get starters.
Well, let's talk wide receiver. I think it's the position that, and I was talking with Brandon Bean yesterday. He's going to get asked about it. He did. He's going to get asked about it again and again and again leading up to the draft. Let's say the Bills stay at 26. Who's there, and what do you think fits the best in terms of what this Bills offense needs under Joe Brady's scheme, but also having a guy like Josh Allen?
Yeah, and I think we'll see what Joe's scheme is now that he has complete control of it, right? I think we can look at some of the things that he's done throughout his career, whether, going back to LSU even, and say, okay, what type of receivers do you want? I think that tends to be more of route runners instead of some of the gadget guys, looking for a player that could be a true X. Denzel Boston from Washington immediately jumps to mind. The hope is that he would be there because at 6'4", 215, players like that tend to go pretty early in the draft. Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana is someone that can win across the middle. He can give you some yards after catch ability. He would be a fit. The worry is, would he still be there in the middle of the 20s? So I think something where Buffalo has happened in the past is when the rest of the league knows your needs, you tend to get jumped, right? And so that's the key this year. I think maybe it's time to be a little bit more aggressive to get into the top 15 picks to make sure you do get a Carnell Tate from Ohio State, Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, and walk out of the draft with one of the surefire top receivers instead of, kind of sitting on your hands hoping that somebody falls to you.
It's funny, man. I think I go to Malachi Fields and I think of a guy who maybe was, kind of sitting back in the late first round, could have been almost a day two, but it feels like after his Senior Bowl, he is skyrocketing up a lot of people's projections too. Is that a guy where if he falls, it fits the Bills, or do you think that he's a guy who is talented enough that Brandon Bean could make a move and jump up to get him?
I think he's probably more in range where you don't have to move to get him, and we'll see what happens this week, right? That could be huge for him. With Fields, I think the big thing is you try to look at his tape and understand why the production, why the catch numbers were so low. Because, he had games that were remarkable. And then, you kind of look at an inexperienced quarterback. You look at an offense that was built around the run game. So the key this week, and I hope we get to see him do on-field drills, will be where is he at in terms of the route tree? Where is he at in terms of the understanding of spacing and timing? Because I do think Buffalo needs a rookie wide receiver that can come in and contribute right away instead of betting on, traits or upside and hoping someone develops. This is a win-now team, and I would argue that window is even closing a little bit with the way that New England and Denver and some of these other teams have rebuilt so fast.
Flipping to the other side of the ball, Matt. Again, last year they addressed their first 5 picks of the draft going to the defensive side of the ball. And obviously the defensive line, I think Brandon Bean was said after last year, watching when the Eagles had won the Super Bowl, watching what they did to Kansas City, it's become a point of emphasis. And I think you saw that again in the way the Seahawks were able to dominate the Patriots, is that position group is such a premium. Under Jim Leonard's scheme, the nose tackle position has started to come up a lot, but you still need that the need for an edge rusher. So who are some of the guys that pop out to you that immediately you feel like, this could be a fit under what will now be kind of a new look defense in Buffalo?
Yeah, it's going to be really different, which is going to be fun, right?
Yeah.
Things are going to change. Sean was great, but it's time to bring in some new blood, some new energy. The nose tackle group is really good this year. This isn't a year where we have a lot of great 3 techniques, but the nose tackles, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, Lee Hunter from Texas Tech, Caleb Banks from Florida, Dominic Orange in the second round from Iowa State. It is a really good defensive tackle class. Now on the edge side, you're probably at the end of round 1, you're getting guys who maybe are a little trait deficient. Zion Young from Missouri, great length, great power, maybe not great lateral ability. TJ Parker from Clemson in a similar situation where maybe not the great upfield burst, but guys who could be, very good number 2 defensive ends that maybe can develop into being that number 1 guy.
Is there an upside? I think of Deion Walker and an upside guy who had a really strong rookie year that maybe would have been higher had he not had that injury 2 years ago. So Brandon Beane gets him in the 4th round. Is there a value pick somewhere in that defensive line where you seeing like maybe even a day 3 guy where you could have that kind of Deion Walker upside?
Yeah, when I think of value in this year's class, I almost think of some guys that maybe they're going to have to like choose a position. I think we can like R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, committing full-time as an edge rusher. He has the speed, he has the athletic ability, probably in round 2, someone who does still have some of that upside factor.
In the secondary, I want to go to there too, because obviously that's such an important position given Jim Leonard's background. It feels like they have their cornerback duo, with health being obviously important there too, with Benford and Max Harrison.
Sure.
Safety, you feel like you have a guy solidified with Cole Bishop. You don't know what the status with Taylor Rapp is. What about young safety talent here? That's been something this organization has kind of hunted the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Is there another guy, whether it be in the 1st round or maybe even a day 2 guy that fits their scheme?
So I love this safety class, and we're going to see Caleb Downs from Ohio State go early.
Yeah.
Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo could be in range there. Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, I think, is the dream fit for Buffalo if you're going to go safety in round 1. From a football IQ standpoint, but also from a speed and a playmaking standpoint, when he was at Purdue and then when he got to Oregon, he just made plays every single week. Yeah. But it is a good safety class. It truly is, to where I think even if you want to get into day 3, Michael Taft from Texas was a leader there, a former walk-on, someone that made plays in big moments, and also he's going to be a hitter for you in the secondary, which I think Jim Leonard's going to prefer.
Because we're a Buffalo station, I want to ask you, there is a guy who, a UB Bowl, there hasn't been one at the Combine since 2021, but linebacker Red Murdoch is obviously starting to impress. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of media around his podium earlier today. Just give me a little bit of insight of what the tape that you've seen from him and a guy who comes out of that small conference, but what he could add to maybe not even just the Bills, but any NFL team that selects him.
The first thing that stood out to me was his ability to sort, and that's so important in the run game. Just understanding run fits, sorting through the trash, and then having the closing speed and the power to make those open field tackles and to not have a lot of missed open field tackles. Sometimes you see these supersized athletic linebackers, it's a lot of missed tackles because they can't get low to make a play. You just don't see that from him. So, we're talking about a day 3 player who's probably going to have to carve out a special teams role early, but I think you see the toughness and those run fits are impressive.
Matt, my last thing for you, just going back to the Bills, what ultimately has to get done, whether it be the draft or this offseason, for them to get over what they call that proverbial playoff wall and bring a Lombardi trophy back to Western New York?
No, I think the key is finding another piece on offense that can be a difference maker, and then finding that on defense as well. Finding that player on defense that's going to be a perennial 10-sack guy that offenses have to worry about. And then on offense, I like some of the pieces that are there with James Cook and Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir. It's finding one more piece, somebody that really kind of stresses out defenses.
Matt, where can people find, read, and watch your work?
Yeah, ESPN.com for the next 2.5 months every day. And now we have a daily draft show every day at 2 p.m. Eastern time called NFL Draft Daily that people can check out.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, the Super Bowl, you get that kind of little bit of lull period before the Combine. No, it's people like you and your colleague Jordan Reed, who I was just talking to. It feels like you guys are probably, there is no such thing of a lull after the Super Bowl.
No, the Super Bowl is when we realize we have to start working much, much harder. Yeah.
Awesome. That is Matt Miller. I'm Dom Tibbetts. We're here in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. We'll talk to you soon.